matter of fact, yeah, let's go into it. Let's talk about the offense, how they looked. Obviously, I've mentioned my stance on it. Look, let me talk about some of the positives first. We matched them on first downs. Both had 21 first downs. We equaled their number of drives. Didn't do as well in yards, but we were catching up a little late. We equaled them on penalties. Both of us only had 7 penalties, us for 51, number 46. That's one of the things I kind of want to see. We cleaned things up. Now, there were some penalties and inopportune times, and I understand that, but we didn't look, certain things didn't look as awful. We were 3 for 3 in the red zone. These are things that we can build on that I like. Now, mind you, again, like I said, the timing of some of these, later in the game, and it really didn't matter as much, but still, these are little things that I feel like are going to help us progress. And I'm looking at it as a whole because I don't want to single anything out. Talk to me about that. I mean, like as a whole, and then let's go into individual success.
Yeah, absolutely. But you're also very kind if you're saying that, we're tied on first downs and
trying to be positive. I also shouted out our kickers, and we see that hasn't been great this preseason.
You're the kicker. You're the quarterback curse for this franchise. Now you're the kicker curse for 2024. Sean, we gotta watch all these like nice words you keep saying. Yeah, right? I mean, yeah. Here's what's kind of interesting, and actually, I've got to give Ab some credit in our chat when he said something about like I didn't see a whole lot of like effort out of them. And I know we're gonna get into like the cons, but it was sort of like that very first play in Jaden Daniels' career, and he throws it backwards for 15 yards. Yes. And that's what today's going to be. All right, so let's lower our expectations here. We know what this is going to be, but I saw a lot of building blocks out there. You saw a lot of things to be encouraged about. More of them offensively, I think, than defensively. But with the quarterback himself, he brought some excitement, and so yeah. I mean, overall, it's like there's not a lot to be happy about, but there also were a couple plays. If they hit them, it's different ball games. And we didn't execute that. So I'm kind of like, well, what if he had hit that pass to Terry? What if the other play that we'll get into?
Oh yeah. And we'll talk to defense after this, but early on, our defense was putting us in positions to be successful. I mean, you look at the first couple drives, we held them to field goals when it was very clear they were able to move the ball down. Now, I think there was a play they had to McMillan early that they ended up hitting for a touchdown later that they overthrew him. So we got a pass on it, but still we're holding them to field goals early on. And to your point, we get that early start to the drive and we're already falling behind. And that was one of the things that I had an issue with. We talked about last year, we can't get behind the chains. That was something that happened a lot. And we saw we cannot overcome that. We still haven't got to that place where we can overcome getting behind the chains, which happened a lot. First drive, you saw exactly what happened. We know the kickers. We'll get into that in special teams and all that. But I do want to shoot out some positives. Okay, other that are a little more positive than the things I was talking about earlier. No turnovers. That was big. We said let's win the turnover battle, where we tied it. We didn't have any turnovers, neither did they. So I'm good with that. Only 2 sacks. Mm-hmm. That coming off the season that we had last year with Sam getting sacked almost the record number of times. This was big. Now you mentioned something to us and Ab and I in the group chat that maybe it was some of Jaden's mobility and his him not having any hesitation to run that kind of stopped them from getting to him, which was great because it wasn't that their pass rush wasn't getting, but we were moving the ball down the field from time to time, and that's the kind of the problem, because if you look at this play by play and you look at some of the things, there is excitement there, Will. Like Jaden was getting the ball out quick. Obviously, you see when he turns the corner, he does have that speed. Now, he's got to get himself to this point where he can't keep thinking linebackers and D tackles aren't as fast as him, because they're not like you're playing daggone Vanderbilt or South Carolina, where you can just run right around them in circles. I see you like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
But still, you have things to build on. Both the running backs, they didn't have as many rushing yards. I think Brian Robinson only had 40, and I know Eckler only had a couple carries, but they were killer in the pass game. And in fact, combined, I believe had like 100 yards receiving. I know Eckler had like 53, and then I think B-Rob had 40 something. But that was huge in our attack, the running game, and how big that we were able to use the both of those. So there are a couple positives in there, Will. Like there's a couple things to your point that we can build off, but there were also negatives, Will. And they had me fuming on Sunday, man.
Absolutely. Yeah. So looking at the positives, I really like the use of the running backs. I thought we'd get a little bit more out of B-Rob, like you mentioned, and he didn't. He really couldn't get a whole lot going, although there were some decent runs from here or there. That touchdown run, that 8-yard touchdown run, he had, he ran hard. That's what I'm looking for out of him. Run violently with the ball. I like that. Austin Eckler showed me that there's a lot of something there. That there's, and it's not just, so his running, he had 2 carries for about 11 yards. One of them was a 6-yarder that he kind of broke off. He was involved in the pass game. We all knew, like, Austin Eckler is a great pass receiver. Yes. That just hasn't been our game. Like you said it weeks ago, like, what if we can use him like we used to use Larry Sanders back in the day? And Larry Sanders was catching 60 to 80 passes for us for a couple of years, and he was such a threat. And there was a play there on 3rd down where it was like 3rd and 12, 3rd and 15. And Jaden kind of gave it up on a give-up play. He threw a little 6-yard pass, maybe 7-yarders to Eckler. Well, he spun, broke the tackle, got a burst, and turned it into a 22-yard play or 30-yard play. And that was an example of, like, you don't have to get it to the sticks every time. Give your guys a chance to do something with it. And good things can happen. They won't always happen, but they will. But I think ultimately the most positive part of the offense was our quarterback play. I think we can walk out of here. There are things we can nitpick with this kid on his very first start. I got no problem if people want to nitpick, but I think we also have the ability to walk away saying, we got ourselves a player at quarterback. We got ourselves a weapon at quarterback. Now, there are things he does need to learn to get better, but he's a threat back there right now. He's a threat with his legs for certain. And we believe he can become a threat with his arm, and that he's electric back there. You said we only had 2 sacks. Well, he saved about like 3 others because he just bailed on it and took off. But I don't know if there was a running play out there outside the tackles that he got caught on. When he went inside, that can't be your game. You're not big enough to be doing this. You're not Jalen Hurts.
Right.
But when he ran outside the tackles, I feel like he got the first downs that he needed to, or he got enough positive yards where I was like, keep doing it. So I'll kind of stop there on Jaden, let you talk. I got a couple other things from him.
Well, yeah, and I think to your point, when he ran outside and cut it up quick, when he tried to outrun them all the way to the sideline, you saw the one play where he had to hop over the guy because they can get that angle out on him. But yeah, to your point, once he got out of the pocket and turned it upfield, I mean, that speed was electric. And to your point, okay. But I think to your point, in the second half, when he starts settling down, and you talked about the pass to Eckler, he had a pass right before they scored on that drive into the third quarter where he hit B-Rob across the middle. And it was a little take what the defense gave you, a little dunk across the middle that B-Rob ends up taking up the field and almost scoring. I thought he got in, but, they said he was stopped at the 1-yard line. But to your point, like, the running backs, the wide receivers were not getting touches. The wide receiver, we know Terry didn't even get like a target until, later in the game. And I think our leading receiver was a running back, and it was like Eckler. You know what I mean? Like, our receivers, Diami, Luke, those guys weren't getting we don't know if they weren't getting open, they weren't getting look, whatever. But he had to go to those running backs, and once he started doing that, take what the defense give you. You see that the offense starts to move a little bit. So to that point, look, yes, he's definitely young. He's still green, but you did have a feeling that there was a comfortability about it. Like you're just like, okay, we're gonna be good once he knows his offense in and out. Once we get the team around him, he's going to be good. But then I think we also have to think about the other part to this, and no disrespect to the Tampa fans, because y'all did a great job. Y'all did a great job to shut down. You talked to me about it. Shut down Terry and basically say, "Hey, go this rookie. Diami hasn't done anything. Let them beat us." And so towards the end, they just started sitting back in that zone and letting everything happen underneath them. And we're gonna get to how we can eventually improve and get back to that, but it's just a lot of little learning curves, a lot of things that we can work out, and you can definitely tell with him there. Okay, we have a chance. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh, is it gonna happen? It's like, okay, he'll do it, and he might make a mistake, but if he makes it full speed, doing something that's positive, okay, I can work with that. I can deal with that. I learned a little bit more myself, but we're good.
We all did. We all were kind of thinking he would burst onto the scene and have a tremendous debut. I think one of the things, that you said it, no turnovers. You could tell he was pretty calm out there. He didn't look like a rookie that was sitting here like, wide-eyed wondering, what am I doing out here? But to Tampa's credit, we talked about that in the beginning. Like they were confusing him out there. I also noticed that, Cliff Kingsbury, we had said, let's make an easy game plan. And he did that. He did not have any passes that were going beyond the line of scrimmage for a while, and then when he did have to go downfield, it didn't work, unfortunately. So I think there's, he just showed there's a lot to build on, a lot to like. But tell me if you've got any more positives. I don't. I've got some negatives about his day.
Oh, yeah. Talk to me. I got a bunch, so go ahead.
Yeah. So, overall, okay, of the three quarterbacks, the rookie quarterbacks that made their debut on Sunday, he has the best yards. He did great for my fantasy team on my bench.
I've heard that a lot.
But he had less than 100 yards passing before we hit garbage time in the fourth quarter. So I'm not counting. He didn't throw for 184 yards, in my opinion. You can throw for 184 and be efficient. He didn't. He threw for about 100 yards. And then that throw to Terry, like, we got to have that. Yeah. That has to hit, because Terry was 2 steps in front of, past that corner. Like that, you got to be able to drop that in. And it's got to be a play. And that would have been a huge momentum change. At the start of the third quarter, you go from 16-7, 16-13, right off the bat. It's like they dialed it up. They took their shot. We are expecting you to be able to hit that. So I think there's that. And then, it's got to be careful with his runs. I don't have a problem right now with the tumbles right now. I'd rather see the tumbles than kind of RG3 would just go barrel into people. So I'm okay with that, but he's got to just remember, we need to protect the body. We got 17 games here.
And we also need to protect the ball. Over. Oh yeah, no, and we also need to protect the ball. And I know, and we said no turnovers. Well, there was still 3 fumbles, so he's still kind of loose with that. And to your point, there was a lot of good action. There was a lot of good highlights, and look at the speed, and look at the dot he threw, and look at this, look at that. But what was the one thing I kept telling you guys, and I told you guys like on Monday, we're not completing drives. This is all nice and dandy if we're getting flashes and we're doing all this fancy stuff, but we were still 2 of 8 on third down. We weren't completing anything, and that to me was kind of, it was an issue, because to your point, we didn't have over 100 yards until later in the game. we weren't staying on the field, so our defense was having to work overtime to stop these guys, and we already knew the issues that they had. And it just seemed like there was not as net a lot of 3 and outs, but also just like I talked about, we continue to get behind the chains. We continue to put our guys in situations that weren't advantageous for them. So now all of a sudden we have to get more. We're having to do these. A lot of that play, the one you talked about, was 3rd and long, where Eckler gets the pass and was able to make the play. And to what's his name? Johnny saying, they had to play zone because they had coverage up. We didn't take advantage, with the exception of that one play where we went deep to Terry. We didn't try to take advantage. We didn't try to exploit that. And I thought that was something that might be a little bit more on Cliff, where it's like, let's take more shots. Let's try to get down the field and at least get that defense to step back a little bit. So maybe that underneath will open up like it did later in the ball game. So for me, I had an issue just with, surface value. Everybody keeps throwing me the stats, and like Johnny said, most rushing yards are a debut of the quarterback, and yada yada. That's great, and like you were saying, they're fantasy. That's great, but it didn't look pretty. And we were in the game. It was 16-7 at half, and they hit a field goal late in the first half. Like, we were in that game, but we could not seem to get down the field and score, and that's the problem I'm having, because give me a quarterback that's an average quarterback. If he can lead us down the field and score, I'm good, as opposed to somebody that's flashing all this stuff and is continually 3 and outs. I got a problem with that, because we got to be able to keep pace with teams, especially if we're going to go up a playoff team like this, which we have 2 of in our division.
Right. Absolutely. One of the things that was kind of disappointing to me and a little surprising is we didn't hit on some big plays. We already kind of talked about the deep ball to Terry that could have been, a big play, but also that reverse with Luke. If you look at the all-22, I've seen people take screenshots. I'm kind of surprised as to why he didn't throw the ball. I haven't heard yet if they gave any explanation, but basically he was supposed to throw the ball back to Jaden across the field. Right. And we had 3 offensive linemen out there ready for him, and it's like it didn't. So it's like, I'm going to criticize Cliff in just a second here, but it's also like, he dialed up like 2 plays that were like, if you execute what was dialed up, that they could have changed things around. But also, to your point, we were kind of playing from behind, because when we get to the defense here in a second, which I think is going to be a pretty quick segment, because there wasn't a lot of good, and we all know what the bad was. We were playing catch up the entire game. The entire game we had to be catching up on scores. So my last negative has to do with Cliff Kingsbury. I'm going to say this: don't waste JD5. Okay, we don't need to have runs up the middle. We also don't need to have a quarterback keeper down at the end zone when we're down 30 points in the 4th quarter. That is not necessary. If you can do one of 2 things, you don't run the read option if that's how he scored. I was kind of bathing the kids at this point, because it was a read option and he kept it. Okay, so we take that out of the playbook when we're down that much, and this score doesn't matter. It's a handoff or a pass. This is what we're calling, because you don't need to run the play that he goes running up the middle and gets hit when you're down 30. Right. So let's be smart with how we're running. They've already come out to say that 16 to 18 times a game is too much. That wasn't in the game plan, just the way the game turned out. And I believe them. But we can also be smart about when we're calling the opportunities to let him run. You don't need to run the read options when you're down that much. Let's work on some pass plays. Let's work on red zone pass concepts and something like that. Or you say, hey, Brian Robinson, we're going to give you 3 times to try and get a touchdown and get something here. And that's what you do, because whether it's 13 or 20 points, it doesn't matter in the grand schemes here. So that would be my only complaint, is like, let's be smart about when we run it.
Yeah, and again, we don't know because we have had a big kicking problem in camp and into this first game, so we don't know how Cliff has maybe trying to cover that up by getting downfield or doing whatever. But my thing to Cliff is, use what you have. We saw in the second half, you started using the running backs, Ertz, to get some attention. If the wide receivers ain't doing it, all right, fine. Let's start doing like we did the second half and get this ball to the guys that are open and just do high percentage passes and get up the field. What happened to all these plays that we were calling in preseason? And I know preseason one thing, this might be different, but still, quick screen out here, high percentage, short underneath stuff. Give him some passes to where we are getting upfield, moving the ball downfield, and we're always getting positive gains. We can't control that first play with Jaden. Although I don't know that I would have called this, that swing pass or whatever it is on the first play of the game. I still want to move forward, but you got to give him places where he can succeed. And especially if we know we have issues out there at wide receiver, that's fine. Well, let's give him things that are going to be quick to the point up the field and just do what we have to do. So, yeah, I'm with it. What is going on, Jared?
And he's not wrong there. He was running for his life at times.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think he saw that because as Will and I talked about with Ab, there was times where one look, see the pressure, and he was gone. And everybody looks at it like, oh, man, look how fast he is. And if you saw on the other side, when we were all over Baker, but even when he broke out of that, first thing he did was look upfield.